This is what we see in ancient Israel, as a matter of fact, and many societies in our ancient past. I mean, the Egyptians were like this, the Babylonians, the Sumerians, many of the other Mesopotamian cultures. They had this balance between the masculine and the feminine at the level of the state, the society. We have the masculine being the king or the pharaoh, and you have the feminine being the priests or the prophets, right? So if we're talking about the Israelites, let's look at kings. I think it was King Saul and the prophet Samuel. You see the prophet Samuel being the feminine. He's receiving intuitive, powerful wisdom from the Spirit of God, the Ruah, which is the equivalent to the Holy Spirit, the Pneuma of the New Testament. I think also the Shekinah glory, which is, these are all technically feminine in nature, and I know that's very, very hotly debated, but this is what it seems like based on my research. You have these feminine aspects of God. If you look at the Holy Spirit, the things that the Holy Spirit provides, healing, right, comfort, intuition at the highest level, right? I'm paraphrasing, but somewhere in the scriptures it says the Holy Spirit will guide you in all things. It will show you all things, even the things that are to come, or will guide you into all truth. And throughout the New Testament, you have examples of people being led by this Spirit, being given insight, right? Intuitive wisdom, guidance. The role of the prophet or prophecy in general, I believe, is edification, exhortation, and consolation. What are those? Those are feminine things. Generally speaking, exhortation could go either way. But ultimately, you have this prophet or this caste or class of the priests who fulfill the feminine role of guiding spiritual wisdom. They are the soul of the civilization, while the pharaoh or the king or the ruler is the masculine element. The mind, you could say, at least in part, it's kind of like the war that's waged internally between our emotions and our logic, our rationale and our feelings or our intuition. They wage war with each other, so to speak. They butt heads with each other, and you see that over and over again. The king is constantly striving to gain authority over the prophets, over the priests, over the spiritual leaders. But what we see in the most healthy civilizations is a proper balance of these two roles. We see with Samuel and King Saul, for example, a balance of power between that masculine element and feminine element, between the ruler archetype and the Sophia, wisdom, the soul, the prophet. If I remember correctly, the first woman in history, according to tradition, is Eve, and I think her name, Eve, I believe that means something like benevolent contender, right? She who contends with Adam, with man. And again, we get back to that Heraclitean idea of the war of the opposites, the war being the father of all things, having that beautiful tension of order against chaos, of masculine against feminine, and ultimately not against, but with, as we achieve that beautiful union of opposites. And the wife should hold a very high level of respect in the husband's mind. She should be able to influence her husband in a massive way, in, you could say, an equal way, but oftentimes, while the man takes the lead, it's often the woman who influences which direction they go in, right? The woman is the neck, so to speak. That doesn't mean that the neck controls everything that the head does, but it also means that the head isn't controlling everything that the neck does, right? There's a balance there that's needed, is absolutely essential. So getting back to this red pill idea that man must become and a women just are. Many of those things are rooted in reality, but many of them are outright false. I'd like to challenge that mindset, that perspective, that belief system, because I think it's incredibly stupid. I think it's incredibly wrong, absolutely asinine. And the only reason you believe that is because you don't understand the importance of the feminine in your own psyche and at the level of society. You don't understand the value of women, and that's a shame. Because just take into consideration all of those feminine traits, characteristics that we just discussed. Take into consideration the role of the mother and the role of the wife. You think that a good wife, a good woman, a good mother is just born a good mother, is just born a good wife? No, that's insanity. She had to work her butt off to become a good wife. She had to work her butt off to become a good mother. To become a whole, strong, powerful woman, in the same way that a man has to overcome adversity, so does a woman. In a different way, yes, but still, in a big way, in a painful way. Childbirth alone should tell you, at least in part, that a woman has to overcome pain and adversity to an equal degree to what we men go through. So here's my theory. I think that the red pillars, I think they would actually agree that, let's say, a high-value woman, they might say, is a woman who would be a good wife and a good mother, right? Someone who is loyal, who's faithful, who's kind, who's generous, is able to bear children and able to care for them properly. So it's just weird that they understand that a good woman has all of these different skills and traits and abilities beyond the ability to bear children and beyond their looks, but they don't take into consideration what it takes to get those qualities, to earn those traits. So let's go through those characteristics really quickly here. There are probably, I can probably count on my two hands the number of books that I consider so incredibly valuable that they're practically canon to me, or they're almost like my personal constitution. And at the very top of those books, I would put the Bible, right? I'm very Western in that sense, and it's worked out very well for me. So I'm going to give you a passage from the Bible on what a virtuous woman looks like, what a high-value woman looks like. And as I go through the character traits of this woman, I'd like you to keep in mind how much goes into becoming this type of woman, how much work you have to do. So let's go through the different traits. So to start with, we have virtue. She is a virtuous woman. Proverbs 31:10. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. Okay. Number 2 is faithful. She is trustworthy. The heart of her husband safely trusts in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. Respectful. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She's also strong. She girds her loins with strength and strengtheneth her arms. I don't know if she's doing Kegel squats or some kind of core conditioning, but one way or the other, she's doing well for herself and well for you. 5, she is capable. She's competent. She perceives that her merchandise is good. Her candle goes not out by night. So basically her candle's going throughout the night because she's working nonstop. She is diligent. Does that sound like a beautiful incompetent ditz to you? Someone who has nothing going for them other than their looks, their genetics. She has a good work ethic. She lays her hands on the spindle and her hands hold the distaff. Again, she's working hard. Great. She's charitable. She stretches her hand out to the poor. She reaches forth her hands to the needy, right? She's generous, right? She works her butt off so that the family can make money, and she can support her family along with her husband, and she's generous with what she earns. Again, she provides for her household along with her husband. She's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all of her household are clothed with scarlet. Clothed with scarlet basically just meaning they have nice clothes. They don't just have their needs, they have their wants as well. She dresses modestly. She makes herself coverings of tapestry. Her clothing is silk and purple. I don't know if that's what that means. I'm reading off a list here. I don't know if they're talking about modesty, but whatever. One way or the other, her clothing is silk and purple. Again, she's got luxury is what she has here. She's doing well for herself. And next, there's a little part about the husband here. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits amongst the elders of the land. So he apparently is very competent and respected as well. She is honorable. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She's strong. She's honorable. She's also wise. That's a big one. Sophia, another feminine trait, she opens her mouth with wisdom. And in her tongue is the law of kindness. So she's kind as well. Awesome. She's a great mother. She looks well to the ways of her household and eats not the bread of idleness. So yet again, she is diligent. She is far from lazy. Her children arise up and call her blessed. Her husband also. And he praises her. All right, she's praiseworthy. I mean, just think about it, right? She's working nonstop. She's an entrepreneur. She's going out and she's investing. She's managing the household well. She's taking care of the children. She's clothing them with nice clothing from the fruit of her labor, and also has enough to give to others. Is generous in that way, right? People who have, fallen on a bad stroke of luck or whatever it is. She is a winner. Ultimately, she's an achiever. Many daughters have done virtuously, but you excel them all, or excellest them all. And last but not least, we come to the verse that we quoted earlier, which is, favor is deceitful, or charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman that fears the Lord, she shall be praised. So a woman who respects the Lord in a big, big way shall be praised. So she understands the importance of looking to the highest, of respecting that which sits at the very peak of the hierarchy of values, of virtue, of the archetypal, of the spiritual. And she's praiseworthy as a result. So think through that for a moment. All these different traits. She is virtuous. She's faithful. She's a hard worker. Like, these things don't come naturally for most people. Working hard, being diligent, that's something that you have to acquire over time. For the vast majority of people out there, I don't know, maybe some people have it in their blood to be diligent, to work hard. She's respectful, she's strong, she's capable, she's well-rounded, she is generous. She provides for her household, for her children. And in the competition, so to speak, in this race of life of her versus the other women of the world, she is the winner. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. If any of you have competed in any kind of sport, competed in anything, business, sports, career, you understand that to get to the top, you have to work your butt off. I mean, you really, really have to work hard. You have to be incredibly diligent, and you have to work smarter. Now, just consider a woman who is like this, and there are women like this out there. I know one myself. I know her very well, and I'm very, very happy that I found her. I'm talking about my wife, in case you didn't catch on to that. Can you tell me that that woman just is? She didn't have to become, she didn't have to face adversity, she didn't have to overcome anything in her life, she didn't fight for the skills and the traits and the abilities that she has. All she did was win the genetic lottery. All she did was have a pretty face and a nice body, and she was able to land the husband of her dreams and live happily ever after. Can you really tell me that that woman did nothing? No, of course not. This woman is an achiever. She's a winner. She is a good wife, a good mother, and a good woman all around. And yes, they're rare, but so are high-value men. And there are levels in this game. Even if most women fall into a category that is under this high-value Proverbs 31 woman, many of them have worked their butts off and have many of those traits, or at least some of them. And that took a lot of effort, a lot of diligence, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and I think we should commend them for that. Give a little bit of credit where credit's due. And that's basically the gist of it, guys. The whole reason I went on this rant is, well, look, let's back up for a second. The reality of the matter is, masculinity truly is under attack in this nation, unfortunately, in America and Western society as a whole. We are out of balance, and that's precisely why we are seeing this massive red pill movement, which seems to be running out of steam, but that's a whole nother story. This is basically the shadow. This is what happens when the shadow of society, right? We have a bunch of young men who have had this agenda shoved down their throats, basically telling them that if they're masculine, they are toxic. And guess what happens when you do that? They have these actual healthy things in their shadow, right? They're masculine traits that they're not allowed to act on, to talk out, or anything like that. And then along comes the Tates of the world, and they can't help but be magnetically attracted to him, to his teachings, basically, to his persona. And this whole red pill movement is basically an overcorrection, as far as I can tell, right? And maybe that's exactly what Western society needs. We need the pendulum to swing far back in the other direction so that we can come to some kind of balance, hit some point of equilibrium. But regardless, there are a lot of things that the red pill movement gets wrong. And to be completely honest with you, I think they're right on a lot of the things that they say. But this is one of those things that is not just wrong, it's reprehensible. It's absolutely asinine, and it's degrading, truly degrading. I think that word is thrown around too much, but it's truly degrading to women, and it hurts us as a society. It hurts the minds of these young, impressionable men who are hurt by people telling them that they're wrong for doing the things that come naturally to them, for being aggressive, competitive. Okay, anyways, that's the end of the rant. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still sticking around, I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one.